Hi there, Randy Green here. It is May 8th, and the number sequence is an 8, 13, 18. So this is what we could call a little bit of a complicated number day, but there's also some relief in it. There was a huge pullout, as usual, one of the old fifth dimensional holograph entities that kind of left last night, technically. So that will clear up some stuff. It is related to Australia, and I'll just leave it at that, because you never really know when these old souls decide that this is it and pull out and return to whatever system they came from, because they are done doing whatever they want to do here. But that's not where I want to go. I'm just saying that numbers are complicated as things are now. It's the number sequence that kind of defines what's going on. So with that pulling out of the number 18, that led to a kind of death energy where something could be released, because when the top goes, the hierarchy of which these entities are controlling will then fall apart, and that leaves some ramifications and some consequences which we don't know of yet, and there will be an internal strife with whoever's left. It's just like when you have these dark hierarchies, the top will leave, and then it's like if you have a business and the boss just leaves and nobody knows who's going to inherit this, who's going to take over, what do we do now, who are the CEOs, are there any boards, and all these kind of things. And these hierarchies are typically built up with one grandmaster, and then it's just working under whatever. But I don't want to go there. This is part of what I do, as always. So for those of you who are new to this one, I'm just talking as if you know, and you just bumped into this one. Just to put it clear, so those of you just following my talks, and some of you might also forget, this is just a kind of, when you say to do it in the psychobeutic terms, well, you're kind of a part of a dysfunctional family, and you kind of see to yourself as taking care of that group, so that whatever's left of that original lineage can move on in a way that's just a little bit honorable. And if not possible, well, then send everything into Palaya, and then ensure that whatever was created by that dysfunctional family will not continue to make any havoc anywhere, or continue doing their stupidities, even though most of it were actually begun as a good thing, and then it just, due to the timeline event and circumstances, ended up in unfortunate sequences and unfortunate choices. And those of us who are here on planet Earth, most of us are here for different reasons and purposes. That all goes with some sort of strife, some sort of things that needs to be cleared out. And that's why when you do the Bailey material, it's called kind of it's the fourth ray, so it's all about creating harmony through strife. But we are also entering, and I wanted to point that one out. We are still in Taurus, but the astrological within the base program setting, and then we're in Aries in what you could call on the celestial level. And as we move further forward into Friday the 14th this month, well, then we enter into Taurus on the celestial level, and then we'll have a week where we both have Taurus on the celestial level as well as Taurus in the astrological level. That means both in the lower and the higher triangle, Taurus will dominate there. And plus we also have right now until 2024, I think it is, we have Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So that's something to do with and we have Pluto in Capricorn, and Capricorn is also an earth sign. So this is all about some sort of division of earth energies, so to speak. Not to go further into that, but just to say there are this whole kind of Uranus is a planet of transformation. That's the best way to put it. It's kind of what rules the purple ray, to speak that way. So that will for you mean something, the seventh ray, and it is also connected to Aquarius, and it's also connected to, again, the whole transformation of stuff, transportation technically, when you turn purple into the blue, and that is where the transformation happens. And all of these old sayings that doesn't mean much for any of you unless you have actually done it and used these energies doesn't actually know what I'm talking about. I'm just putting it out there. So there will be between next Friday 14th, and actually until Friday 21st, at the end, the last week of this creational part of this month will be in a double Taurus, including Uranus in Taurus as well. So this is where you can kind of say the upright pentagram and the downward pentagram actually has a chance to either meet up and unite and reconcile and become the hexagram, or they will divide further, and that will, of course, create stuff for the rest of this year and probably from times to come, because we are also in the month 5 and we are also in the year 5. So there's a lot of 5 going on here. So that's significant, and that's all to do with knowledge. And when we talk about whatever was left from the previous solar system, was all about learning to control what we could call space and energies and reality fields. And I talk about my version of it in the Pillar project, where the way we were working and others were working in a different way, and that goes back to the internal strife, the creation of the LPU, the ones that wanted to remain in the old cycle energies, and the ones that moved into the fourth cycle. And the Pillar project were the ones that moved into the fourth cycle, where whoever was left behind stayed behind in what we call the third cycle. And the third cycle after the timeline event is not the third cycle I refer to, because after the timeline event, we had the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth cycle, and technically we are in our reality right now in between the fourth and the fifth cycle after the timeline event. So when I refer to the third cycle, it was the third cycle of the original LPU that kind of recreated its new cycles there as well. And before that, we also have the cycles in the holographic metaverse of the original reality field that we all come from some way or another, whatever that means. And I talk about this in the Souls of Humanity with a little bit different terminology, but it's fine. I just wanted to point out that this, for those of you who are a little bit kind of in Pluto, it's not a planet, but we do know Pluto is the ruler of the underworld. So that's, of course, when you have that in Capricorn, and we have had that since 2008, and we actually run until 2033 or something, I think. So that also gives a lot of explanation for what's going on. Those of us who are clearing out our own timelines and are in the process of preparing for the transition, where you, if you remember from the videos, how to contemplate, you had these 4 different, you were in the middle with the 7th dimension, which are what you could call the 3 basic dimensions of reality, including time, space-time, and then the 3 fields you're composed of. That's the 7 dimensions you are to learn to work with. You in the middle of some kind of environment, some space. It's between what we call the local, the global, and the systemic settings. I talk about these in the new grand cycle, course 1 and 2, where we talk about the 3-9 pillar, where the trinities arise, and where we learn to understand that we are composed of 3 fields. We are in the world of 3 dimensions, including time. That's the 4th dimension. We are composed of 3 lower fields with 4 etheric fields, of which the surroundings around us are composed of the similar 4 etheric fields and the same kind of matter energy. And we are composed of that as well. And we are influencing each other in different ways and forms that are first individually, then it's global, that means surroundings, and then it's systemic, meaning as part of the solar system. So that's technically the transition from being yourself, local, into global. That's society, and expands out into planet, and then expands out into solar awareness. So that's kind of what you say, the expansion sphere that is going on. So that's what we technically learn in the 3rd cycle, and that's where the whole kind of mastering space and time did not exist, because that's an effect of the timeline event. But there were, if we go beyond time and our understanding of time is an effect of you moving from a point A to point B in some kind of space. So that's what time is, and the amount of energy it takes from move to point A to point B is technically velocity. So as Einstein talks about relative reality, that is the explanation of time. The special theory of relativity, sorry, that's just now, I just have to go down in the normal base program brain neurons, and that's jams up a little bit. So let me go back up into the other level of information, the one that's behind. And when we also talk about the whole kind of the pentagram being the symbol of the human that is mastering the three lower fields and at the same time being able to integrate the two above human levels, which goes with the soul and the causal body and whatever you want to call it, or the fourth and the fifth dimension, or the superhuman levels of our reality. All of these are different terminologies of the same thing. And I want to bring this in because it's all about the fives right now. We're in year 5. This is the month that technically is the number 5. This is also where we have the Wesak that goes on the 26th of May. On that one, it's a full moon. On the same time, we also have a lunar eclipse on the southern hemisphere. And that is where the Buddha, where the ones that are adhere to the Theravada Buddhism, they celebrate his birth, his death, and his enlightenment. So these are, and Buddha in the esoteric teaching systems are a fourth ray, fourth ray. That was the Taurus. Sorry, Taurus is a fourth ray sign, which goes with illumination through strife. So it's all about this: the bull with the upright horn, the bull with the downright horn, the black bull, the white bull. All of these symbologies goes with these two aspects of the bull that goes with true knowledge. And we, of course, knowledge is not something that's just for us that are doing what we call the white bull and the upright horn and the enlightenment or whatever. It's also knowledge that goes with the dark path and the black bull and the Minotaurians and whatever's going on. So knowledge in itself is not it's not the aspect that are to be sought for alone, because that's technically what we developed in the third cycle before the timeline event. That was all about knowledge about mastering energy and consciousness within a spatial setting, within the understanding of how holographic realities are built up. And then I'm here making it a little bit more advanced. So you begin to understand, okay, etheric fields, the 4 cosmic ethers, these are technically code sheets. And the moment you can go beyond the whole color perception of what the etheric fields are, and you go behind the purple and you transform it into the blue, and you go behind that and you get it into the original functions as they are, you can see it's a code system, and they are flame ledgers, but they are on different 4 levels of fire, if you want to put it that way, and they have 4 different functions. And each and one of them, you have the one that's connected to the highest version of life. That is the true life. The life we have now is technically not a principle, as it's called. This is a result of unfortunate effects, which I call the timeline events, and which the beta material just kind of goes in. Yeah, it's kind of the cosmic evil we have inherited from the third cycle, which is not a lie. But this is, again, how much do you want to go into it? How much don't you want to go into it? And these 4 code sheets are connected to the life principle in you, that you should work through your molecular field, controlling that one, through the highest purity rate, working with your astral field, which goes from emotional to subconscious and into the astral plane, which is a distortion plane. It's a pure deception. And you have to transform that using the chakra system in different ways or forms, or whatever system you're working your way through. It doesn't have to be the chakra system. It can be whatever system you adhere to. And then transform that into, so that when you work with the highest purity rate on the molecular level, that's technically what the bull is all about. But when you work with that one, including the astral energies, because the physical form is connected to the astral level, remember, what you think it controls what you feel, and what you feel controls the molecular state of your body. And if you have any doubt about that, go in and study sciences, epigenetics, how the different codons in the DNA switched on and off, all according to the different transcript and transcript codes and the different forms of proteins and enzymes that are created through the different receptors and neurotransmitters, and the way that your body works. You need that science to get out of the old versions of what astral is and what emotional is, and not seeing as some weird fluffy thing that you feel, and get it a little bit more scientific into an understanding. This is an electrochemical reaction that's controlled by the pituitary gland, that is part of the the thalamic system that is part of the brain, or the limbic system, and all of this has a specific purpose. So you upgrade all of the things you know into a higher level of science. So you both take the earthly science as we are now and compare it with, okay, what were we taught in the 100-year-old material? And that's where I recommend the beta material, but I want to return a little bit to that one so you keep yourself sober in that one, because there's a lot of astral distortion in that teaching system as well. And then there are earlier on the older teaching systems that are prior to the 1700, prior to the 1800, that kind of goes with religious systems. So again, and this is why I take my time to blast through this, that is hidden over time. And they all go back to 7 major teaching systems that were taken from Atlantis as Atlantis fell. 7 different nations, if you want to put it that way, 7 different races, traveled to different areas of our planet, which then became their jurisdiction. And their race continued these secret teaching systems, as in how to continue whatever project that they were part of as part of the Atlantean colonies. And this is again where you shift your mind out of whatever you have and go into a little bit kind of, okay, let's do a Star Trek version of this one and understand, okay, you have 7 different types of organic vessels within this reality that are composed of 7 different times of 4 codes fields. That goes with what we call the true life principle. That is where we need to get back to either the LPU or the holographic metaverse, all depending. And you say, well, this does not make sense. Well, technically it's about wave systems and particle system and molecular states, holographic realities, time frames, code fields, different energy fields, how energy work together in a holographic manner, and how these are combining into what we could call an interactive reality that is not a virtual program but is affectable by consciousness and the ones that live in it. So therefore we are interdependent. Energy is interdependent of consciousness, and consciousness are interdependent of energy. Realities only exist if there are life forms in them. If there are no life form, there is no reality. And that's when we talk about the remaining planets that are out there, they are now in their decay state. Our universe is technically in its decay state. The majority of things in our universe is actually dust clouds, and this is because our quadrant is in its complete decay. Most of the life forms that used to be here has taken off because this is an old sector. So we are kind of what's left here, and this is where we are to understand that this is it. And the transition is that, well, it has reached a certain level, and therefore it needs to purify itself and begin to reset and become what it was a very, very long time ago, and go back to the original setting, so that the original races that are waiting out there from other systems that are ready to go into the 4th cycle can come back and inhabit our universe and mainly our solar system as it was supposed to. There are other levels and other cycles in other parts of our universe. So this is what the elevation is all about. It's about, let's return to the original civilization that used to exist here, and not this weird Frankenstein reality that we have got going down here. So this is just the last phases of our planet is going through this maturing process where whoever's left will revive. Whoever can do the transition will do the transition. Who cannot will go to other systems, who will either go by fleet or go by transfer or go by whatever. This is where we are taking the time. Everybody's taking the time here to shut down projects, to close off what went wrong, to evaluate what could be done better, to assist the ones that can move on, to assist the ones that have to go back to the systems they came from, the refugees, whatever got here. This is where you get the chance to, do you want to continue with the rest of us, or do you want to go back home, and all these kind of things. So this is the grand opening of whatever's going on our planet, so we can shut it all down and say, well, that was it. Shake hands, pat each other on the shoulders and say, well, you played well, friend. Let's do the next 7 years in reconciliation. This is what's on the table. And then after that one, do 7 years of peace, so we can get this sorted the best way we can. With that one said, this is also why I want to talk about there's so many things leaving and coming and going and ups and downs and back and forth and different cycles coming in and opening and shutting down and clearing up and making things worse and making things better, because this is what the fourth ray is all about. It's not harmony as it is in law and order and beauty. This is harmony obtained through strife. So there must be some kind of discord. There's always some dynamic. There's always some imbalance. And that's what the Buddha taught, to obtain the peaceful center in all oppositions, where you can transform energy into its higher equivalent. And that's what illumination technically is about. That is where you understand how to balance these oppositions through the use of your knowledge. Or the opposite. So this is again where we kind of have the ones from the Sirius system, that if you go with the beta material, the Great White Brotherhood decided to shut the door for quite some huge portion of the Sirians that that chose to remain in the third cycle type of energies, and the ones that wanted to move into the fourth or the fifth or whatever under the solar riches. And this became quite a huge thing of dispute, both within the councils and beyond. And these, the majority of the ones that were denied further access into the Sirius system that moved on, they were left behind, and they are in many ways portions of what we could call the teachers of our civilization. And this one you need to understand, but there are different factions within these leftover Syrians. The ones that completely turned third cycle, and the ones that wanted to remain the fourth cycle, these are different factions. And the ones that wanted to go into the fifth cycle, so if you have the ones that were shut from the original Syrians that wanted to go into the fifth cycle, these are typically the ones I call the Syrian Bs. The ones that want to remain in the fourth cycle again after the timeline event, these are the Syrian A's, or the avian based. The Syrian B's are reptoid based. And then you have the ones that want to remain in the third cycle with whatever they were, mainly insectoid, Orions, very darkened Syrian, before it was divided into Syrian A or Syrian B. Again, understanding these divisions and how they actually look. And this is where I just want to put out that if you do embark on some of the Bailey material, as always I say, I'm reading it in Danish, and Danish people are a little bit kind of more down to the ground. So we're not this whole kind of arms up in the air and this whole six-ray dedication, worshipping of anything. We're all Vikings, remember? We worship absolutely nothing, not even of the Nordic gods. We didn't worship them per se, but we saw them as a kind of a different level of reality that were controlled by the gods, but humans had their role in that one, whatever that was. But not the same way as you're seeing this whole big dedication of that if you were out fighting as a Viking, would you contribute your battle to Thor or whatever? This we're just a little bit down to the ground, so to speak. So that's why I'm happy to read it in Danish, because I know when I read, I was just looking up the whole Sanat Kumara kind of thing, and it means the young one. And it technically goes back to Kalachakra Buddhism that saw Sanat. It actually goes to Hinduism more accurately. There are the four Kumaras that were born of Brahman, and they were the four sons of Brahman, and they're all 16-year-old boys that decided to to not fornicate, to not create families, but contribute their existences to teach humanity. And then you had the Blavatsky that were beginning to talking about Sanat Kumara, and there she took that 16-year-old boy and put him into and blended it up with the Kalachakra teaching system, which she refers to. And Kala, K-A-L-A, chakra, if you want to look up what that is. And there she brewed this whole story about Shambhala, which is also a Tibetan Buddhist idea that this is where one of the Kumaras settled down. But she took it into this whole kind of etheric city in the Gobi Desert, whatever, where the Ascended Masters had their abode and all of these kind of things. And I just looked it up, and I saw all of these pictures of the Ascended Masters that were spawned out in the 80s and in the 90s. I know there were made teachings of them back in Blavatsky's days, and the Bailey material says these are all the astral and Then you have, if you look at the Ascended Master teaching, and Astral Command came in with his spaceships and whatever, the Galactic Federations in the ages. Sorry, I'm joking a little bit about this, because for me, it's very sobering when I'm looking at that, because I remember in the 80s and in the 90s, I met people who were doing this. They were all so engulfed in it. They were serious. If you just raised any doubt whatsoever about the Ascended Masters, and remember, to begin, there were only 7 male masters, but then in the 90s and 2000s, you got 7 female masters, right? Because it was not right just that there were only male masters. That was a little bit weird, wasn't it? But the whole story about things, you need to go back to the origin of stuff. And then you need to understand, well, humans create these deceptive stories because they are doing what's called projection. And that's my take on it. And I will never change that one. And it's artificial technology, as I talk about in the Souls of Humanity. So just because I'm referring Bailey to you, it's not that I want you to slip into that rabbit hole and begin doing the whole Ascended Masters thing and worshipping them and being completely drawn into all of the astral deception technologies that goes with that entire Ascended Master kind of thing. It goes back to Blavatsky, but it's also in the Bailey material. And when I'm looking at all of the psychological and what you need to do to do the path of liberation, what you need to do to change as a human, there I find the validity of the Bailey material. When we talk about the whole frame of reference, the whole concept that was built into with the Ascended Masters and the Gobi Desert and Sanat Kumara and the Ancient of Days, which is technically a terminology from the ancient Hebrew Bible, or the Christ and the ashrams and all of these kind of things. I'm just kind of, okay, could we please get these programs to stop playing? Could we please take down these crystal discs and get the program out of it and present yourselves? Could we get the puppet masters to present themselves? And that's where, when we do the Venusians and we do the planetary hierarchy, these Syrian A's, and once they agree to kind of let go of this whole astral overlay, holographic projection, some of them are just snakes. They're not even in real human form anymore. And others they used to be quite tall, but now they are 1 meter tall. And if you don't know better, if you don't know the difference between energies and sensing that they are more avian-based, you would easily confuse them with a type of semi-organic gray. So this is, again, when you talk about the flame lords that came from Venus. Well, these were some of the Syrians that were reptoid-based, that were doing some of the battles on Venus. And let's not glorify, let's not buy into these stories made by humans that so much need some kind of divinity to buy into, as we saw it with the Kabbalah and the archangels, and you can say the archangels and the 7 ascended masters. Well, isn't it a little bit kind of the same philosophy? And I might be hit on my head by people on this, because when I began 2007, that were some of the things I was actually saying, and I got for those, the devotees under the 6th ray, they were very dedicated to their belief. Well, they got a little bit pissed off with me, let's just put it that way. But I want to put it out there for you, so that what we're doing here is not to fall into the bucket we are studying. We are studying different buckets to try and find the original 7 pathways under the solar riches that were taken out from Atlantis, the original 7 ways of upgrading and getting out of this hellhole, whatever holographic teaching program, because that's what it is. It's different types of programs. You know, from the Colontic Sciences, Anna Hayes, as she was called to begin with, she was talking about these CDT plates, which they had been translated for her. You have it in the Bailey material. They refer to the same terminology as Blavatsky does. These are the old sayings from some kind of Dyson or whatever it's called in English. Don't know. I read it in Danish. Doesn't matter. But it's the same concept. These old sayings that have been hidden throughout time, which are also trying to be mirrored in the sayings in the Gospels and onward and so forth, that are keys to a bigger teaching system that is always built upon 3 layers. One goes with the outer sources of information, typically the written. Then you have what's called the oral, or what's given within different fraternities and societies and whatever. And then you have the highest level of it where you yourself find your answer. So this is knowledge on the 3 levels. So that's the first step of it, to learn to discern knowledge and see what tools are out there. How can you combine these tools to find the knowledge that you seek? And this is what, if we talk, what's the ageless wisdom about? It is that understanding of how to find the answers. But at the end of the day, most of these teaching systems, that goes with what's actually called a holographic teaching system, is highly distorted, and they are, whatever's left of them on the astral plane are pure distortions, as we've seen it with the ascended masters and the whole worshipping going on there. And the whole, that's where I say, look up the ascended masters and see some of these pictures. And if you just have a little bit of common sense, you will just look at it and say, well, they all look alike, don't they? And interestingly enough, that version of them, whenever some of the ones that like to present themselves to be the Niburians or the common day Pleiadians, they look like that one, the Reptoid-infused Pleiadians, the Galactic Federation. They kind of look like that one, all of them, and then you strip it apart and behind you have a gray or some weird race that doesn't really look very nice anymore. Quite a lot of them are running out of juice. So that is also, when we do this study, let us not give them more energy, but actually look upon it as a way of clearing up your past. Most of us throughout the time on this planet has been involved in one of the 7 teaching systems throughout time, somehow, somewhere, in some form. That's why we still have this urge to find the answers. We have been involved in this quest to find these 7 original teaching systems. And we can say for most part, they have been so distorted, the original ways of using this, and this, I'm describing that a little bit in the Source of Humanity. Under the general level, the last piece of the book, there isn't much left for us. So this is also when we give this whole power away to either entities or astral plane thought forms, if that's emotionally infused thought forms, or pure knowledge that has the unfortunate side effect of quickly draws us into the 3rd cycle and whoever is presiding there. And when we do the astral thing, we are into the whatever's left of the Syrian A's, and when we do the mental, we are kind of drawn into the Syrian B's, because the Syrians that were part of the timeline event have quite a strong, or had a stronghold on our planet. And then, of course, whoever they collaborated with, and all of these kind of understandings. And then there is, at the end of the day, what is left of the original humanities of our planet. And that's where I want us to focus, because we also need to understand that these 7 different pathways were technically part of the Atlantean project. And what was the Atlantean project about? In my opinion, it was about how the LPU races could get back to the holographic metaverse, or how the humanoids under the solar reaches could return to becoming true humans, which is what I strongly believe and remember and see and think and all these kind of things are where we all came from to begin with. So this is why I call them true humans, and what they are and how they look and all these kind of things. Don't know. It's part of our reality that's beyond our concept of understanding anyways. But I'm giving my bit in the Source of Humanity, not to give it more, because we're not to create thought forms and astral imagery of what they were and weren't, and how we're part of them or not, and all of these typical deception mechanisms that goes in play whenever we are trying to create some place we belong. Everybody wants to know, oh, am I one of the 12 lineages? Am I this or am I that or whatever? And it doesn't matter really. It doesn't matter really, because this is about the quest you're on, the quest to find yourself, the quest to remember. And as you remember and you go through the different fields of which you are to transform, using the code systems to alter them, to purify them, to get you're purifying the molecular level using the etheric code sheets that are there, using whatever you need to do of healing methods, of self-healing, of acupuncture, of food and meditation and yoga, and whatever you're doing, whatever works for you, to purify and keep your body in the best condition that you can possibly obtain. And then you do the astral thing that is both psychological but also imbued with visions and dreams and tarot cards and crystals and chakra system and all sorts of weird teaching systems you can embark on and then look upon with a scientific interest as a kind of comparative tool of spirituality. Do comparative spirituality. Compare the different astral systems and see what they can be used for. Ask questions to them, not just fall into them and become a believer and use 6-ray dedication. No, do the 4th ray of illumination through strife. Be critical about it. Ask questions to it. Do it to transform whatever's there. See if you have affinity with it from past lives and then clear it out, because these are teaching systems of the past and not of who and what we are today. So this is also where we need to use these teaching systems to kind of work back in what we could call an infantile state of adoring and worshipping and just believing without asking questions. And then you mature as a child, you grow older, you become wiser, you have experiences, and by that you learn to work with these teaching systems as what they are. They are ideas of progression, but not necessarily the true ideas of progression. They are time-dependent systems that have been developed throughout history through the different lineages that were left that tried to keep this alive, and it became lesser and lesser, and from times it was clear and other times it was lesser clear, all depending on the teacher that were continuing that evolution. And these 7 evolutionary systems, teaching systems, from my perspective, there's not much left in them besides they belong to lineages and races of which most are gone. They're literally gone. A lot of stuff changed in the 50s. There's a reason why all of these different races could come in the 50s, simply because many of the original races were gone. So there was a vacuum, and when there's a vacuum, something else can come in. So that's what has happened. So we are in a different setting now. But this is a matter of remembering. So this is your path to remember who and what you are by working with different systems, comparing them, asking questions, and see if you can clear away the clutter, because that would be a way to work with the code systems behind the astral field. Aside from the psychological work, this is where you're going to work with visions, with dreams, with tarot cards, with subconscious material, with all sorts of imagery that pops in. And hopefully you'll get to the point where you'll work with the pure code system and the pure electrochemical understanding of your glands and how the limbic system works and how your entire physiology works to produce these different kinds of electrochemical reactions, which are called enzymes, and how you can assist with these enzymes to upgrade your molecular state. And you can use your chakra system if you like, but you don't have to. You can do it directly on the glands themselves. If you know enough sciences of which actually been exemplified for you in the whole normal science. And then if you take the code fields and you combine these two, you can begin to alter the chemistry of your body. And by that, working with, if you like, the principles are given and the rules of engagement, where you will begin to transform your glands and your nervous system and your limbic system and your whole sensory system into be able to vibrate in oscillations that will allow you to enter into the 4th dimension. That's the process. Whatever teaching system you use, that's the goal. You can invent your own or you can use what has been given by others. This is a quest. You're the scientist, you create the theory, you exemplify it, and you see if it works, and if it doesn't, you do it creationally again, because that's also part of the 4th ray. 4th ray is also about creating beauty, not just by strife, but actually also about administering reality energies in the correct way, knowing what to cut loose and knowing what to preserve and knowing how to alter it and knowing how to create with it. And the purpose is to create that system that will give you the best chances of remembering who and what you are. And with that one going into the mental level, and the mental level is kind of not really touched in depth in the Bailey material. It's alluded to all the time, but the Bailey material is to show the path into the higher four higher levels of the mental field that we are composed of, that begins with the human mind, with normal sciences, that then goes into the expanded, what we could call thought forms and manasic level, where you work with the energies and going into the understanding understanding of intelligent use of these energies, which are the knowledge that you should already have obtained in the third cycle, and then turn it all into perception and intuition that you should have developed. The perception you should have developed by working with the imagery of the astral field. But here, when you talk perception, this is where you learn to expand your perception field into different levels of reality and know exactly which reality you're working on. That's why the the mental plane is divided into 4 fields, similar to the 4 etheric fields, because this is where you actually know to push the last piece of the 4 etheric fields into the higher equivalent using the different mythologies of the 4 mental fields, which will then hopefully be imbued with the vibrational level and your heart field that at that point hopefully should have gained some kind of what we could call group awareness, which means that you're not doing this for your individual purposes, so you become the powerful one that can master energy and consciousness so you can achieve your personal goals, but hopefully have got to this, that's the dark path, hopefully got to this point where you're actually seeing, well, this is for the highest good of the many, this actually has a greater purpose, and this is why it's important that you understand you are your local center, where you're in the middle of that center, but you have an influential sphere, and that influential sphere affects the system you're part of, it affects the planet you're part of, it affects the family you're part of, it affects many different rings around you, so that you understand the moment you begin to do the vibration, you affect other things around you. The moment you go into the 4th dimension, your energies will affect everything around you. Because it's holographic. Holographic means that one unit can affect the entirety. So this is why we need to have this. We can't have this whole dark stuff going on in us before we enter into what we could call whatever gate systems that would allow us to go back into whatever system we came from. And that's why many of the races shed off their whatever they're having of the 3 lower fields inside this reality, whether it's inside ours or if it's beyond that into the artificial 4th dimension and the systems that are there, or into the artificial 5th dimension or whatever systems that are there, and then literally just say this is it, and they decompose completely, and whatever's left of viable, vital consciousness units will then be let out through what's called the eye of the needle. I know I refer to that one as being the gate system into the holographic metaverse, and it technically still is. And you can see these as very, very advanced gate systems that are only allowing organic vessels to go through if they are in complete genetic and energetic alignment with the place that they are to enter. And you can figure out most are not today. So therefore, the eye of the needle literally means for most that are trying to do it, when they're not ready, they will decompose and they will evaporate and cease to exist entirely. And this is unfortunate, but that is how it's done. And that's why many have forgotten these pathways, the 7 main gate systems that would get us out, because that was the original idea behind the 7 different pathways that came from Atlantis. How the fuck do you get out of this this enclosure? So that's what that is. But they are, as I said, of not much use. So this is where you need to rely on your own information. But the layers to get there are full of deception and manipulation and whatever to hold you back, prohibiting technologies and all sorts of weird stuff that goes beyond what any of us would ever imagine. But I just wanted to put this out there so you kind of always keep the goal in mind. And I know I keep giving you different goals and I put it into different contexts and I repeat myself within different frames of references. And just so, because now I just got your whole kind of, oh yeah, read the Balaam material, and then you begin reading that one. And if you're not having your guards up, you might get completely swooped off your feet, forget everything I said, and you go completely ascended master kind of thing. And that's not my intention. I'm not pointing you in that direction so that you can get all swooped up as a sort in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And there was a lot of material out there. Oh my goodness, there was a lot of material. I saw these people and they were creating books and materials and they were all focusing on the masters and worshipping these and falling in love with all of them and whatever, because they're fucking gorgeous, kind of the perfect male kind of thing. So, oh yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on there, but that's not the point. The point is, this is comparative spirituality, and you're doing this so you learn to discern, so you develop your scientific critical mythology with whatever you're working with, so that you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, whatever goal you have set for yourself, and whatever is important for you. The work you do, the way you work, whatever comes to you will slowly but surely along the way tell you who and what you are, which path you originally belong to, which race you originally belong to, because we have the 7 pathways are in alignment with the 7 races that participated in Atlantis. And if you are one of these under the solar rishis, or if you're not, again, rishi is, Kumara is technically also rishi. This is just different languages. It just means a teacher. But again, with this whole kind of what are the solar rishis, for me, these are the councils of the humanoids. So this is just an organ of different councils that are working together to figure out what to do with their lineages and what they come from, what's the right path, what's the right way to do this, and whatever they are choosing to do, because I'm not really part of the solar rishis which reside in the major system. They are not part of the Syrian system. They are above the Syrian system. This is something high up amongst very, very advanced races in dimensions I have very little to do with, because that's not where I want to put my attention. These are just things that comes in and are part of our reality, similar to if I'm working with people from Australia or I'm working with people from Iceland or whatever. We are different aspects of the same unity, but expressing different types of energy, combinations of energy and consciousness. And the goal for all of us is not to try and find the gate system out, because then it quickly becomes a competitive contest of who is to win and who is to get out through the gates, and that's the only one, because the law of the one is that only one will get through, and all these kind of things. That is part of some of the whoever remains of some of the races, and that's what they think, and they create human vessels to produce the genetics they need so they can get this perfect body that will allow them to go through the gate systems, whatever, and having completely misunderstood that the gate system lets people in that are in alignment with what they are to enter into. It's very, very easy. The moment you're in alignment with what you are to enter into, there's not even a gate, there's not even a door. You literally just go in there as if you go from one room to another, because you're in alignment with it energetically and genetically. Your consciousness structure is in complete harmony with whatever you're entering into. And until it is that, then there will be strife, then there will be suffering, because you are not in alignment with what you're trying to achieve. So this is the goal for us, and this is also whatever comes your way, this is your journey of developing yourself. And the whole academy is all about giving the first thing to you to pull you out of this whole kind of, I need teachers to teach me, I need someone to ask my questions to, I need a go-to person because I don't rely on myself. But I don't want you to rely on yourself as being selfish and a jerk and all these kind of things, but rely on yourself that this is something you can handle. You have the psychological strength to do this. You're not a child anymore. You are becoming a grown-up. You're not even a youngster. And if we go with the Saturnara, that's the youngster. He's an eternal 16-year-old, and he's supposed to be the lord of our solar system. No, thank you. I would like someone who's a little bit more mature than that one. So just to put it out there, this whole kind of looking for answers in others, they're just contributors in your quest. And when it comes down to what kind of narrative do you have to have in this work, if you're kind of, where does you fit in, Randy? I'm just like a coach or someone who's just done this for a longer period of time or whatever. But this does not mean you go to me and ask me all sorts of questions and you know the way, you know the path, you've experienced this and that, whatever. What am I to do? No. What is a coach about? What's the best way to do this? If we make an analogy and say you want to become a marathon runner. Okay, how do you become a marathon runner? You can study a lot of stuff to begin with. You definitely change the way your eating habits so you have the right level of protein intake, so your body has something to work with, so that your body can produce the level of ATC it needs to make muscle structure and to burn off energy, the metabolism that is necessary to become an effective runner. So you put your science lab, the way you perceive your body, into that lab, as a science lab of your own, and you produce what you need to become efficient and get the energy, the kinetic energy you need to do that, including meditation or martial art or whatever you need to do so you control your bodily energies. But the way to do that is done through your experimentation. And you can, if I am to coach in any ways on that one, you can explain, well, I'm doing this and that, whatever. I've tried this and that, whatever. And then the coach would rightfully say, well, have you combined in the right way? Are you using the right ratio? Are you taking the pH value into your equations? Are you looking at how acidic the food is that you're eating? Is it actually the correct food for you? Are you creating enough, or there are too high levels of glucoses in that one, or too low a level? Are you getting enough of the amino acids that you actually need from a natural source, or can you produce them themselves? Which of the glands are you to work with? Which of your glands are not working in the right way? So when you begin running, you deplete quickly because your liver is not functional enough, or your insulin intake is not working the way it's supposed to. How's the feedback system going on? Do you have too high glucose level so that your insulin system has, in the feedback loop, have become negative feedback system, so you're getting depleted and you're getting tired, so you need to do a little bit more of a different type of protein intake, or whatever? These are the things you need to ask yourself. This is scientific. It's not just, oh, I go out and say this is the superfood, or this is the right food for me to eat because a marathon runner is supposed to eat this and that, whatever. Each marathon runner, just look out there in the world, they have their own diet that works for them. It's about how quickly do you get depleted of energy, how tired are you, what is your rhythm. If you're female, your whole menstrual cycle will play in, because you have higher levels of estrogen and lower levels of progesterone and all these kind of things, that when your body is kind of working into, okay, now progesterone comes in, you're supposed to become a progenitor, you're supposed to produce offspring, so your body goes into a specific hormonal state that is focused on that one, and that's probably not where you can do the most levels of hardcore marathon running. You'll deplete quickly. So when can you train more efficiently? All of these kind of things. And if you're a male, there are rhythms that goes with that one as well, which I don't know much of, but I could imagine that has a lot to do with how you think, because that affects how your body works and how focused you are. Some periods during the month where you are more in heightened state of your adrenal glands or your testosterone, that probably has a cycle on its own as well. I wouldn't be completely surprised. It's not always switched on. The 2-year shift out of your sperm that has a cycle. There is a cycle going there, interestingly enough, 2 years. Wonder if that follows the cycle of Mars, just saying. So anyway, so these are the things you need to figure out. And I don't have the answers to this. I'm just going to throw out, investigate this, figure it out. Dive into it, look up different sources of information, compare these sources, work with it yourself, observe yourself. You're the experiment. Observe yourself during the month. Put a year off to do this investment in yourself, to do the test of the different ways to do this. How does blueberry affect your system? Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Blueberry has a type of acid in it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's good for some and it's bad for others, and onward and so forth. So this is the investment. And when you go with what's the coaching about, what can I give you? I can point you in the right direction, but you're the one to do the work. You are the one to do the comparison. You are the one that are to investigate. You are the one to find up different theories from where you get ideas, and these ideas you use in the concept you have created or what you want to gain with it. It's a completely different way of thinking that is very little to do with the 6-ray dedication, kind of trusting authorities and the church and the governments and whatever's going on. That this is the maturation process of, and this is part of the future societies that, and part of the original societies, because we were all scientifically, that's the 5th ray, working with energies. And it was all about developing these energies in alignment with our original consciousness structure. Nobody can tell you how to do that. but good advice can be given, and some sort of coaching, as in to keep you accountable, to keep you on the track, to push you in your training, to sometimes give you a little bit of pat, you're doing well, and at other times kick you in the butt. That's technically what a coach is about. It's not about having all sorts of personal stuff and all sorts of questions and all sorts, should I do this or should I do that and whatever. This is your journey, figuring all of these things out. So you rely on your own experiences and what you have worked with, and know this works for you and this doesn't work for you. This is the first big step of it. And the same goes with the emotional field. It's the same mythology. Exactly the same mythology. Some of the therapeutic approaches work for you, others do not. Some are good with meditation, creative imagination, going in and working with visions, others are not. Some are good to work with dream states, others are not. Some are able to control the wave patterns in the limbic system so they can shift between visions or dream state or astral or actually into the fourth dimension, and others are not. But it's all a matter of practice. It's all a matter of practice. And when we come to the limbic system, the creation of imagery and the understanding of how the brain does that, that's a study as well. And you can amplify it through hands-on. The same with your organs, the same with your entire body. That's the self-healing. And what are you technically using through your hands in the healing energy? You're using etheric energy. Okay, what's etheric energy aside from the life force or prana energies, which are energies from the sun? What are they technically composed of? Flame letters, code systems. Okay, so what is healing about? Healing is about recoding according to who you are and what you are to achieve. Sometimes you destroy with healing because it's not useful anymore. Other times you repair with healing because that's what you can do. Something you amplify, something you excite so it kind of shows itself, and other things you are to reveal so it can be dismantled because it no longer serves any purpose. These are all good tools to have, and that's why I point you in the direction of the esoteric healing book from Bailey, because that's technically the only healing book that goes into you're not supposed to heal everything. And what is the goal of the healing? What are you to achieve with the healing? And why do you do self-healing? And I'm not going the whole Bailey group, ashram, as your healer, work to heal others. That's not what I'm recommending. I'm just purely recommending this as a tool for your own healing processes, so you kind of get some thought forms that are testing your approach to what healing or self-healing actually is. And I think that's a good approach to take that into consideration, and then you decide what you feel is right for you. Okay, so this is why I recommend that book, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on with healers. They think they are to heal everybody with love, and that is good and fine, and that's all that's necessary. And technically, that has absolutely nothing to do with what healing is actually about. Healing is a mastery of energy to compose the highest purity rates, the highest standards, so that you can achieve the highest progression rate. But if anything stands in the way of that, then it must be dismantled and cease to exist, because then it no longer serves any purpose. So healing is also purpose-oriented, has a function and has a goal and has its right time and it has its right place, and it can go both ways. Okay? So I just wanted to put that one out there, as we are again blasting through the last 7 years of work I've been doing, and as we reach closer and closer to the 21st of May, where technically the rest of the year has been put in play, and whatever will come from there will be what will grow out of what we have done in the first 21 weeks, where we can either amplify and build on what we have built, or uncreate what we have created, because it's not functional, it's not of a high enough standard. So whatever we're doing, we will prepare for 2022 and the transition. And I'm all of this is also part of me figuring out if I do a book, what should I put in it. But the main thing you are to understand is the diagram or the illustration I showed you in how to contemplate, with the four, your past and the past Earth and prior Earths and future Earth and higher Earth, so to speak. The transition is about completely being able to cut loose all past Earths and all prior Earths, energies, timelines, genetics, energy fields, and anything that relates back to what is under the control of what we call the third cycle races, or the ones that have chosen to stay behind and are not moving forward with the galactic and universal elevation that is going on around us. This is the big choice. So I'm just saying that's another way to put everything I've said into a diagram or an illustration, where that can be envisioned as in kind of that leaves you behind with three spheres of existence: what is above, what is in the present, and what is in the future. And notice what below and notice what behind. These are to go completely focused in the now with what you have got. Use what is above you to integrate that, beginning the integration process so that you can aim at the future versions of yourself and whatever you want to become in these futures. Whatever you choose is fine. This is all up to you. That's the journey. That's the quest. And you use whatever tool you have got, but you use it scientifically, in a complete understanding of what you're dealing with, so you can discern, so you can use the fire energy and burn off what is not of use to you, so you can use the air energy of the code systems, so you can use the water energies to purify in the correct way so that will not become mist and cloak your vision. And you use with the earth element to enlighten, to illuminate, and to transform whatever energies that are in the most dense or solidified form, which is your organic vessel. Again, different layers. Remember, always trinities that are working within 7 fields of some sort of existence, which you can call dimensions if you like. But it's technically, if you say 3 dimensions, these are the dimensions of space, including the 4th, that is time, so that's space-time. And then you have 3 dimensions, quote unquote, that are your emotional field, your mental field, and your molecular field that are operating within that space. And this is where, that's what you need to master, if we are to put it in a little bit of updated terminology. And that is to understand the molecular level, the electrochemical level, and the way the brain works with its synapses, its wave patterns, its wavelengths, and what these actually are the beginning of, and how you are to administer the development of your brain in different ways so you control whatever is going on in your body, so that the energies you will produce the highest rate of vital life force, if you want to put it that way, that you are to use in different aspects when you enter into the other levels of our reality that are beyond the known 7 dimensions. Thank you.